Talk, the home of where the talking is good. It's your boy, Cody, and the other guy, and another guy here once again. Tiny table, big group, whatever it is.
Big group.
Big room.
Found myself counting people because you said Cody, the other guy, and the other guy. Did you say another guy after that?
The Holy Spirit
There's
is here
another
today.
guy. There's another guy. Anyway, tiny table, big room, good conversation.
Fire.
You're here. You know what we're about. Is the intro even necessary anymore? I mean,
well, I was kind of hoping it'd be our thing, but I don't know.
It's been this way for a long time. It's been a pre-record.
Are we in year 3?
Oh.
Why is the pod not taking off?
Is it year 3? Well, I was looking today. I was actually a little bit. I was like, look at that. We're averaging anywhere from like 40-ish views or so. I mean, that's not bad.
No,
you
I'll
know?
take that. That's better than 4.
I haven't watched it in a while.
So add one more.
I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah,
you know?
that's great. I'll take 40 views.
Yeah, I mean,
totally.
that's at least if I had. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know anyone that like re-listens or anything like that, but I'm sure that's at least like 25, 30.
Man, now
loyal
there's
listeners.
pressure. We got to keep these 40 people entertained.
Entertained.
There's less pressure when there's 4, but now 40.
How
Come
many
on.
subscribers are there?
That
I
I
don't know.
I really don't know.
How many of you are subscribing?
Let us know in the
Do
comments.
us a favor and smash that like button and subscribe.
I looked at this camera.
You looked at that one like you.
I couldn't tell you how many subscribers we have because I can't even find our channel.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
There's nowhere to be found.
Why does this seem like a Creed moment, like where like creedthoughts.com or whatever? It's just a Word document. Like Rob's just in his own little world. He's got
So
like
true.
his own windows pulled
Ryan
up on his
made a
computer.
document on my
The Vision
computer, and
Pro.
I think it's going out
It's
to
like
everybody.
not even the same.
Okay. I panicked because I finally did the joint Spotify thing. So I have my own Spotify
nice. Yeah.
now, and
Congratulations.
I'm not subscribed. I wasn't subscribed to anything, so I had to go through and find the Good Talk again, which
Oh.
was so hard.
It was.
actually.
Listen, I get attacked by these youngins for using Spotify.
I love Spotify.
Really?
How is Spotify
What are
not a
they using?
thing? I think like Apple Music and like other stuff like that. And I'm just
can't.
like,
Spotify just feels so right.
I think
somebody
Apple
sent me
Music's
a
more
so-
popular for whatever reason. I don't know why.
someone sent me a song and I couldn't listen to it because it was like you got to buy Apple, so I messaged them back. I was like, I don't use this, and they're like, what do you use? And I was like, I use Spotify, and they're like, boomer, and I was like, what? No, I'm not a boomer, and B, like Spotify is trendy. Like, what are you talking about, bro?
For
I'm cool.
one, Spotify was there first, technically. So
Well, I think that's the issue.
I don't care. They did it right.
Technically, Hamster or whatever, Napster or
Oh,
something like
yeah,
that was
Hamster.
first. Napster. I don't know what it's called.
A new streaming service called Hamster.
Is it Napster? Was it
It is-
Napster?
was
I mean, that would
Napster.
make sense though, because it's like on a wheel, just replays. Hamsters in a wheel.
Hamster on a wheel. All right.
I don't know. I mean, sure.
But isn't there? There's more though
There's a
now.
lot.
There's a
Oh, I'm
lot
sure
of
there's
like
a lot.
music streaming
Yeah.
sites. Like it's crazy. I
I
can't
mean,
keep up. Like just give me
technically, there's
Spotify.
Amazon Music.
Oh, there's
I think
Pandora.
Pandora is still a
Oh,
thing.
Pandora's still a
Sirius
thing.
XM, I'm sure has
Yeah.
some subscription.
Oh yeah, look at all this.
Yeah, Spotify. I think and mainly it's
Apple
probably
Music.
because like Spotify again, in my opinion, was the first one, and so I already had an account, and then it was just easier just to keep it going, and just why change?
Agreed. I agree.
Why would I switch over?
And I think we're like Craig. I think we have like a family situation. So like Samuel has his,
Yeah.
Christian has his, Rachel has hers, and I have mine. So I mean, you can't do that with Apple Music, can you?
I'm sure you can,
Dang it.
but
Just
why
drop the
again?
prices.
Why switch now?
Right. That's what I'm saying. So it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So 40 viewers. Are you entertained?
Are you
As we
entertained?
talk about music. What? Music.
We are changing the subject of this podcast.
With that being said, though, like I looked up. Well, I didn't look it up. Somebody looked it up, and then they told me. Okay, but what's his name? Brandon Lake is going to be in Atlanta, and I was
Oh.
like, dang, I would love to go Brandon Lake concert. And then I saw the prices of the ticket, and I
And
was
then
like,
you don't.
Spotify it is. I will watch his videos on YouTube because the tickets are crazy, bro. Like to be on the floor, like. Not actually like even on the floor. I think just like lower seats was like $495. Yeah.
I mean, we went and saw Lauren Daigle here in town at the Orion, and
I call her the Deagle.
The Daigle,
Oh my
the
gosh,
Daigle.
not the Deagle.
We were like fairly close to the top of the arena, and we basically had like a side stage view, and we paid like $60 each. So it was like, $120, $130 for like not that great of a view.
Was it worth it?
I mean, mean, she put on a good show. I would have preferred to see from the front.
see her.
Yeah, like, I mean, we could see her because, obviously everyone's got, like, the screens and whatnot
Well,
now,
that's
too.
true, yeah.
But, like, when we were walking out to, I think, use the restroom at one point, we could actually see the front stage. And, like, her set was, like, so cool and everything was, like, I don't know how she was choreographed and whatever. They did a whole thing to like match her set list, but we couldn't see it from our side, so it was like, oh, we kind of missed a little bit of the experience. But I say all that to say they're really proud of their performances, their shows out there. These artists, they want their money. So
I wanted to surprise Rachel to go see this comedian in Huntsville. His name's Nate Bargatze. He's really funny and he's clean. He's just really good. It was at the VBC to be all the way up. You know where when we used to go to graduation,
Yeah.
like way up there where
Yeah.
you can see the insulation on the ceiling and how gross it is. Like you're way up there. It was $95 a seat,
That's wild.
and I was just like,
think of how many
no.
seats are in that room,
I
too.
know.
that's crazy.
And I was like, I'm not paying $180. I'll watch this guy on Netflix.
I mean,
you know what I
a
mean?
lot of
And
that
from
money
the comfort
goes
of my
towards, like,
house.
the venue and stuff. Too.
Absolutely. It
doesn't all
takes
go
a
to
lot
the-
of money to rent the VBC.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely. But
I,
still.
I am curious about though, like how much of that is like VBC money, how much of that is like artist money, or like whatever venue it is. Like what's the split in that? Like
I don't know.
does the artist pay to play, and then like they just get all ticket sales from there, or does it matter from venue to venue? Probably.
I don't know.
I only played small potato shows, so I have no frame of reference. Ours,
Right.
we didn't get paid up front, so we was just like whatever money they had at the end of the night was what money we got.
I have no qualms with someone getting paid. I mean, that's your
Yeah,
thing,
for
like
sure.
get paid. But I am curious what the split would be like VBC. I'm sure. I wonder if it like just to cover cost of like renting the VBC for the night, or is there something additional to it? Because whatever, I would imagine it's just cover costs. Like I bet the Orion's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just got to cover the cost of running the place, and then
Sure.
whatever extra you take.
Did
don't know.
y'all play at Warped Tour?
We did.
That's probably the most similar.
Yeah, but Warped Tour is like different. I feel
Oh.
like. I mean, it's like a festival, so it's like
They probably take care of all that and then pay their bands.
right. Like I imagine some of the bigger bands, they get like their fee, and then they get merch sales out offside of that. But I don't think they get any ticket sales. I would assume. We didn't see any money from Warped Tour other than merch sales. So
Okay, well.
we were baby band.
Baby band.
Does that just seem like forever ago?
It really does.
It's like so weird to see you in this life and to also know that you had this whole like
this one.
rock star life.
It wasn't even, I don't know. I mean, I like to feel like it was it wasn't really that long of a period of time. Like in my mind, it felt
Yeah,
like a
that's-
long period of time, but I didn't really do it that long. I
Yeah.
mean, realistically, in comparison to the other portions of my life, I mean, that was a very like maybe high school and a little bit after, so 4-ish years or so of my
Really?
life. Yeah. I mean, social jet lag was really only like 2 years when you really think about it. So
I was there for the whole thing.
But everything just goes so fast, though.
dude,
Yeah.
It's just
time
wild.
flies.
Yeah, I mean, I said yesterday we're 23 Mondays away from Christmas.
That's
so wild.
so crazy.
That's not a
and
lot.
of course you would know that.
Yeah, I would
Counting
know that.
down.
Absolutely, because in my house, like I said, that means 13.
Yeah.
Because everything will be up for 10.
good.
So,
So great.
I mean, but it goes fast. Everything just goes fast. We went to the movies and we went and saw that Inside Out 2.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, so good.
I love them. You saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
I've
it was even better
referenced
than
the
the first
little
one.
like thing that goes to the back.
Yep.
I do that all the time.
Okay.
like this whole
Put that in the back.
This whole last week, I would like give direction to people. I'm like, just throw that to the back.
But
go back to it.
But come back to it. Find your way back to it. But they
I
had
haven't seen the
what
movie. I
cracked
don't
me
know
up-
the reference.
So it basically, she created this this pipe that memory she doesn't want. She can put them in there, and it throws it to the back of the
Nice.
mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Because she's trying to protect Riley from being a
Dang, you know her name.
Well, we watched both of them
Super
back.
fan.
Well, we
Oh.
fan. Yikes.
I guess it's good. Watch the first one. to
We
kinda
watched the
know-
first
yeah.
one the
That's
night
smart.
before on our couch,
Yeah.
and then we watched the second one. So, like, they say Riley 1,000 times in both
fair.
movies, and so, so she's trying. So it's about the emotions
Sure.
inside your head.
Yeah,
and
I've seen
there's
the
this
first one.
Okay, so Joy is trying to protect who Riley is, so she just takes all these memories and chucks them to the back of her mind. And in doing so, she ends up manipulating the person that Riley did. Anyways.
Gotcha. I
Like
think
But-
she learns like you can't do
Spoiler.
that. You have to keep everything.
Yes,
So.
but what's funny is nostalgia keeps trying to come in, and they're like, "Not yet, not yet," because she shows up. It's this granny, and she's like, "I'm here to remember," and they're like, "No,
So
no."
good.
And so I just thinking of all this, I'm like, man, I've been
can't wait.
nostalgic for a minute,
be
And
great.
so nostalgia showed up in my mind like 20 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Yikes! So it's been a
just
minute.
stay here.
Honestly. Anyways, so what are we talking? What was your topic?
Well, it kind of blends in a little
With
bit.
nostalgia?
Oh, cool.
No, not-
Am I saying that right?
not
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia is one of those words. The more you
Nostalgia.
say it, the wrong it is.
I
But
say more
nostalgia sounds like
thing.
it could be a name.
Yeah.
Like when
Maybe
you say
it's like a
that.
symptom of people who can't remember.
No.
What? I don't think so at all.
Okay, anyway.
Alright.
Moving on.
He's like, no one was with me. Get out. Let's go to the next.
Throw that to the back.
Yeah, that's going to the back. Get in the little pod.
Okay, so at one point,
This is a user submitted request. I'm just kidding. No.
Well, he is
Pulling it
technically
at one point,
from
like,
subscriber.
it was probably like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 podcasts ago.
Whew, big minute.
You had actually said something where it was like everybody can relate to the season, and you were talking about like seasons.
Whew.
Gosh, I'm so ready for
like-
a change of season.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You were talking about like seasons in the earth.
Okay. All right. I was like seasons of what was it? I'm going.
But I started thinking like, because I have had this conversation with like friends and peers, and so I kind of thought like seasons in our life and like seasons that like the Lord calls us to, like not everybody can relate to those seasons, and so it's like, what do you do? Or not even necessarily like what do you do, but like how like to navigate those things. I don't know really how to form this into like a topic, I guess. But it's just like, you know, people call it like, for instance, Destiny. She's been super loud and proud about it. She's going to Chile soon.
Whoa. I'm just kidding.
Is
What?
that public information?
She tells everybody, so I would
Yeah,
assume
she's
so.
talking to everybody about it. Sorry.
Well, our 40 viewers just found out, so it is
But I
on
mean,
They
the-
probably don't even know who
but
Destiny
it's
is.
exciting. It's exciting for her, right? And so, but it's like not everyone's going to necessarily understand that.
Mhm.
I mean, even
Sure.
now, probably when people tell her, because she has visions that's so far ahead.
Yeah.
Some people even now when they hear it might be like, and they're not really like there, like receiving it or whatever. You know, I
Mm.
don't know. So that was, I don't know how to formulate that necessarily into a topic as far as like, not everyone's just going to relate to the season of life that you're in, and
Yeah.
you can't let that stop you.
Yeah.
You know,
Which I
So-
think is an actual very important thing to
Sure.
discuss and for people to know is pastored by the Holy Spirit. Last week when he was giving the altar call, he said, "You're not just looking for relief; you're starting a journey."
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and that jumped in my spirit when he said it, because I was like, oh my goodness, that is so good, because we've had this discussion about altar calls and like what's the right way to say this that we can actually get people to engage with it. And I think that that's it. Everybody's journey is so unique to them.
Yeah.
That I think it's one of those things that you can't just put it in a box and be like, okay, this is what happened for Cody, this is what happened for Craig, this is what happened for Robert, so this is what's going to happen for me. It's just like the Bible talks about in Ephesians chapter 2, how we are all God's masterpiece, but we're so uniquely and wonderfully created in his image and his likeness, to where everybody is going to have this unique journey that looks different from everybody else's. There may be similarities,
Sure.
you know, even like, you know, our paths have all brought us to Cornerstone, so we all get to worship together. But even within that, our paths within Cornerstone look different.
Sure.
You know, so it's like there's similarities and there's things that are going to be the same. But at the end of the day, and I think like sometimes I wonder, like even, you know, in my own life, I wonder if sometimes we miss God because we are trying to, you know, follow the similar path. Pav used to be in a band called The Road Not Taken. Shout out to Pav.
The Road Not
The
Taken.
Road Not
Gee,
Taken.
that's so
yeah.
Pav.
Right? And so
great.
I feel like he'd have a leather wristband on when he plays in that band.
Absolutely, yes. And I had one watching him. You know what I mean? The leather. I still have it in my closet. I found it just the other day. Actually, is this leather wristband? You know, it's like really wide and
So
stuff.
great.
That was the whole trend when we were in Bible school.
Felt it in my soul just now.
But you have to, you know, Nickelback. You gotta,
Yeah,
Nickelback.
I immediately thought of Nickelback for
well,
some
the funny
reason.
thing about Nickelback is like supposedly they're this giant hated band, but I think people forget like you can only be a giant band if millions of people love your
Honestly.
music.
That's
So,
true.
It's like it's the
I
thing.
know.
Like people can hate on them all they want, but they're clearly wildly popular.
They're like, you can hate me all the way to the bank. I don't care.
Honestly, they're one of the most popular bands that have done music.
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's so funny that people give them a hard time. Anyways, that's
Can't
not our
stand
talk.
them still.
I
Don't
actually
like
like
you.
their music. It doesn't bother me. I
You
think-
are not invited to this pod. I'm just kidding.
Whoa!
I'm joking. I'm
Come
joking.
defend yourself. Are they Canadian? I think they're Canadian.
Are
You
they?
should
They
like
are.
them. Yeah.
Of course.
See?
you should like them. You work for
I
Canadian.
jammed
company.
out. I jammed out in my fields to him when I was a kid. So
See? Right? People
Look
just
at this photograph. That's the only one I know.
Whatever. You have their album. you got the
Cody's in
vinyls.
his car on the way home.
Back to Inside Out. It's one of those dark secrets. It's in the vault.
Oh, yeah, it
Cody's
It's like my
hiding it.
guilty pleasure. Just like go back.
You got them in a jar in the vault in the back of the mind. You know you do.
I mean, if they're like, hey, would you play guitar for us for a butt ton of money? Yeah, maybe for a little while.
Wow.
Sure. Why not?
So if Cody goes
Stand
missing,
true to who you are.
Can't stand you, but I'll play for a
He's
couple
got
bucks.
like his inner ear monitors with Blink 182 playing while he's on stage. Just like imagining that he's like playing with Blink. Oh, so good. But you got to walk your own course.
Yeah.
God's called us to do this life with Him.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's important. I don't even know how we got off. How did we get off on the Nickelback situation?
I don't even know.
you said
The
something
road
about
not
Pav being in a
taken. Yeah.
band.
Yeah. The road not taken.
The road not taken. But, it's interesting. And I think one of the biggest things is when it comes to following this plan of God is making sure that, and I know we say it all the time, but surrounding yourself with people that will push you to go there. And this is how you can tell like real friendship is when like somebody encourages you to follow God knowing that maybe it's going to cost them part of the relationship too. Like, with Destiny, like she has some good friends here.
Yeah.
And a good friend would want her to stay and be like, I'm going to miss my friend. We're not going to get to hang out. I'm going to be all alone. And especially if somebody, doesn't have a lot of friends, but like, being able to say, no, you know what, that's what God's calling you to do. You need to go do it, regardless of what it's going to cost me and how I'm going to miss out. And I think that's the big thing, because there's always going to be stuff out there that's going to try to keep you from following God's plan for your life. And I know like lots of times when people say God's plan for your life, I wonder if most of the time people go to like ministry. But God has a plan for all of us. And the bulk of God's people are not going to be in the fivefold ministry. We're all in ministry, if you will, of being this disciple and being this example and being salt and being light. But for the most part, maybe your journey with God is being a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad. Maybe your journey with God is working at Lush or working at Lulu, or maybe it's being a part of Nickelback. I don't know. But everybody's individual journey, and making sure that we surround ourselves with people and the encouragement we need to step out when that plan is wildly different from what other people thought it was going to be.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think, like as we've been, talking about this a little bit, I think back to where before we had kids, and we understood the responsibility of like, I say we understood. We thought we understood the responsibility of what it looked like to raise a child and stuff like that. But then like when we finally had kids, it's like we really began to understand what it looks like to be a parent. And so understanding like different seasons have different responsibilities. And so it's like our lives changed a lot once we had kids. And so the way we, used our time, the way our day-to-day looked, it was drastically different. And obviously everyone has a different way of doing things. I'm not saying any of this to like freak you guys out, because I know you guys have a wonderful setup how you guys do things, I'm sure. I don't know. But, it's just like, how everyone, the way that our friends had, their schedule and stuff is different how we had it. Our lives are just so different. And so it worked for us. But in that, we had some friendships that didn't quite understand that, our lives are different now. We can't just hang out until midnight anymore. We can't just up and go to the movies anymore. Hey, we just can't just drop everything and go to dinner anymore. And so kind of like you're saying, like, even if you still have the same friend group, maybe somehow explaining or making sure that, hey, we're just in a different season right now. And we're not saying that the friendship is over or anything like that, but you have grace for us as we're going through this season. And, it's not that it's over by any means, but it just looks different for us now. And I think that that's something that we're still kind of working out and figuring out as we go. I feel like we're kind of entering in a season now to where our schedules are becoming a little bit more flexible. We're able to give and take here a little bit, which I'm excited about, because I miss people. I miss people. I want to have my friends back. No, but I think that that's just recognizing that different seasons have different responsibilities, and so there's going to be sacrifices that need to be made, and it can be challenging, but if it's what God called you to, then it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things when it comes to this unique journey that we're all on with God is, and you can say like, okay, this is most important, this is more important. I think there's a lot of things that are important in this life of faith that we live. But I would say in my journey with Him, one thing has been just remaining flexible, because, maybe I got called to Oklahoma to go to Bible school, but that wasn't the end of that plan.
Sure.
So even though I put down roots there and I made friendships there, okay, well, God had something beyond that, and it's like, I think if we just get in our own mind and we're like, this is it, this is the path I'm going to be on from now until I'm 95,
Yeah.
I think we shut the door for God to possibly lead us into other areas of our life that he's had planned all along, because the Bible talks about how he's known us before the foundations of the world, which is just wild to think of. And, Jeremiah, which we quote all the time, I have plans for you. And I feel like when we just say, this is it, this is what it's going to be from now until eternity, I feel like what we're doing is we're not allowing ourselves to be open to those future plans that God may have in our limited knowledge and our limited understanding that maybe has not been revealed to us yet, because, my plan from 18 to 25 was very specific.
Yeah.
And then from 25 to 45, it changed. And so I had to be flexible, and it wasn't even really 25 to 45. I guess it was 18 to 21.
Are you 45?
I will be in June.
Oh, man. Wait. Next? Oh.
Yeah, a year from now.
I was like, wait a minute. You said that like it's like forthcoming, like very soon.
I mean, I was just throwing numbers out there and like hoping they sticked, and that's why hoping they stuck. And so from, okay, so we can just back it up even further from like 13 to 18, like it looked like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then from 18 to 22, it looked like this. And then from 22 until present, it looked like this.
Yeah.
I had to be flexible in all those different seasons to be like, okay, if he wants me to leave Colorado, which I love so much, and my family is here, and go to Bible school, then I'm open to do that. I'm flexible for what I feel like God's plan is in this season. And you do have these rare occasions, like God has engrafted Rachel and I to be a part of Cornerstone, and I feel like that is our life. But even in that, there's adjustments that have to be made.
Sure. Yeah.
Just like what we're doing in Ablaze right now with Noah being junior high and you being senior high, and I'm getting phased out, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know.
She's like, I guess.
The pencil is like slowly erasing my hand and my arm, and like it's just a very, but
He went from Robert to Robert to Robe.
all of a sudden there's just no name, but it's like I'm just a sound now. But it's like, so we're still here.
Yeah.
And we're still vitally connected to our pastors and to our church, but maybe our role is shifting. We have to be open to God's plan and like this shift in that plan. And even if we don't understand it, and I will say, like, even what he's doing in my personal life right now, there's lots of times where I'm just like, I'm uncomfortable with it because this is what I've done for the last 22 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, God is like, okay, that's great, but now it's time for a season change. And it's amazing how you could walk with God for 20 plus years, and then when he brings a season change, you're like, no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would think it would get easier.
Sure.
But I don't know that it ever really does.
Yeah.
Because we're human, and as human beings, well, especially me, I like routine.
Sure.
I like comfort. I like to know what's going on, and I like to, low key be in control. And I can't get mad at that because, God made me that way. And so, but at times I have to like relinquish that and say, okay, I'm really not in control.
Yeah.
God, he's the one that wrote this story, and it's just my obligation to read it. And when we change the chapter, we change the chapter, and I've got to flow with it.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of like, I will say it does take a lot of trust, and it takes a lot of fellowship with your creator, because at times it can really vex you in your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, stay open to what he has for you. We see this all the time, like even in relationships, somebody can be like, oh, that's my husband. And then it,
They're not.
yeah. And if they're not, but like you've already made that decision, can God speak to you and show you that they're not? You know what I mean? You've made it that much more difficult by not. Now, obviously, I'm not talking to anyone that's already married.
Sure.
I'm talking about
right
somebody
one.
that's like single and like dating and looking for their spouse.
That's my one.
Yeah, that's the one. That's it. Like somebody talked to us a while back, and they're like, the Lord showed me who my spouse is. And I was like, that's amazing. And I was like, don't ever tell me.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever want to if the Lord says something through me, I don't want it to be influenced by that. But at the same time, be flexible, because there's another person's will involved here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So even though the Lord has revealed, and you feel like the Lord's revealed that to you, if this person doesn't cooperate with what the Lord's doing, you've got to be open for him to take you the direction he had planned all along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I just feel like we can't just get, what the Bible talks about. We just can't be stiff-necked
Yeah.
and say, okay, this is who I am. This is the direction I'm going for the rest of my life. Well, you've kind of just really cut out God's influence and directing you and being led by his Spirit, because maybe he wants you to go over here and do this.
Man, that's so good. We mentioned at the beginning that I used to be in a band, and that was what I
Not
loved.
Nickelback.
Not Nickelback. But I mean, from a
It was-
very young age, like even before I started playing guitar, like I wanted to be in a band. Like that's what I wanted to do. Like that was like my dream. I'd sit in my bedroom with a pillow in my hand, playing the
Aw.
Blink-182, just pretending like I knew how to.
That's
like,
amazing.
You know what I mean? I was just like, yeah, I'm like doing a concert like to nothing. You know what I mean? So I would do that, and
That's
then
so
like
cool.
when I finally started playing guitar, eventually like I played with like people and tried to do band stuff. But then like later in high school was when it got serious. And after high school, we toured a little bit, nothing super major or anything like that. But at that time, I really believed. I was like, I'm living out what I'm supposed to do. Like this is what I've been called to do. I'm doing it. This is the end all be all, kind of like what you're saying. Like this is it.
Yeah.
And like shortly after, I got married. I started working here at the church, because you got to make money to provide for your lady. And so I needed a job, and a job was available. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And so I was working here, but also still in the band at the time. But during that season of starting working here, I had already started to feel like maybe the time of being in the band was over. Like maybe it was done. Maybe it was time to move on to the next thing. But I fought it for like a year. And like I knew for that whole year, like something was shifting. It didn't quite feel right anymore. And with that, I was unhappy when I was with the band, but I was also unhappy when I was at work, because I was almost like trying to, when I was at work, I wanted to be with the band, but when I was at the band, I was like, I know I'm not supposed to be here anymore. And so it was like this weird battle within myself, but eventually it came to a point where I was like, I've got to make a decision. It's either this or that.
Wow.
And I fully believed in my heart that with the band, it just didn't feel right at all. At least with work, it felt right to some degree. And
Yeah.
so I felt more peace to at least stick with where God was, clearly, because he's at Cornerstone. Shout out to Seawall.
Shout out to Seawall.
But as soon as I made that decision to, all right, I'm leaving the band and I'm pursuing Cornerstone, it was like an immediate relief off my shoulders. It was an immediate feeling of peace, uncertain peace, but still peace, in the sense of like I knew I made the right choice. I no longer had to battle the two choices anymore, because now I've committed.
Yeah.
And at least for me, if I had stayed in that state of uncertainty, one of them was going to make me choose eventually, right? I mean, it was going to come to a point to where I was either going to be forced to choose, or something was going to fall out of my hands. I don't really know how it would have worked, but I know that since I was able to make the choice and I was able to make that decision, it felt so much better to be a part of that process. But I also know that the grace clearly had lifted on the band side of things, and I was able to enter in. And now I feel like when I made that decision, I was actually able to excel at Cornerstone, whereas before it was like, I was in this weird battle and I couldn't give 100% to either one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm glad that obviously I was able to leave that season of my life. It sucked. It hurt, because it was a dream in my heart. But at the same time, I knew that I needed to let it go. And when I did, I'm able to actually see what God has actually called me into.
And that's just part of it. That's just part of walking with him. And it's incredible how, I don't know if this might be an oxymoron, but it's incredible how you can, when you make decisions like that, you can have peace in the middle of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Well, the
Like,
Bible says it gives you peace that exceeds all understanding.
That's right.
Mhm.
So
that's right.
it's so good.
So it's so interesting how we just have to sometimes, my dad used to say it this way. He used to say that when it comes to following God, people usually miss it by 12 inches. He said they follow this when they should follow this. And I think, like, I've been there before. I'm sure everyone in this room has been, and maybe even, our 40 listeners. We're big time. But there's lots of times we feel like a lead-in, like God is telling us, like saying, like, this is the way.
Yeah.
But like in our head, we just can't wrap our brain around it. Like we don't understand the logistics of it. We don't understand how that's going to be beneficial to us. I was having a discussion with one of my boys the other day, actually. It was just this weekend, and we were talking about God, and we were talking about being led. And he was like, how do I, gosh, I wish I could remember the framework of the conversation exactly. But I know the outcome was, this is what it came down to, is Rachel and I told him, we said, listen, you can take it to the bank anytime God ever asks you to do something, it's going to be for your benefit.
Yeah.
He's never going to steal something from you. That's what we were talking about. We were talking about, like, what we watch and what we don't watch. and Rachel was sharing, how she has this one show that she really loves, but it had some inappropriate stuff in it. And since it had inappropriate stuff in it, the Lord just kind of like moved on her heart and was like, you don't need to be watching this. And so we were sharing that story with them, and they were like, well, how do I know, if I'm about to watch something and it's not good and God's telling me not to watch it, how do I know that that's going to be God or not God? And that's when we begin to explain to him, he's never going to ask you to give up something that's, he's only going to ask you to give up the things that are going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's a caring father. If your mom and dad, your natural parents love you this much, just imagine how much more your actual creator and God of the universe loves you. And so everything he's going to ask you to do is going to be for your benefit. It's going to be for your protection. It's going to be for your growth. It's going to be, and a lot of those things are difficult, right? Because I think lots of times we think, just walking in godly provision, walking in godly protection, walking in godly, it's always easy. That's not true. Mm-hmm. We have to make some sacrifices on our end to walk in his provision, to walk in his protection, to walk in his soundness, to walk in the wholeness that's been provided to us through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. It's as weird as that might sound, to walk whole, I must sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And what I have to sacrifice sometimes is my wants, my desires, and the things that are going against the season that God is bringing me into. I'll go back to my example because it's the only one I have. I don't know y'all's life, but like even with the youth ministry, relinquishing some of control of that, like goes against who I am, naturally speaking,
Sure.
Very much like, we're that, if we're out back and we're going to dig a hole, I'm the one with the shovel digging because I know that I can dig it the way that I want it dug, and I'm more comfortable with you guys watching me dig it instead of giving you instructions on how to dig it because I'm not sure it's going to turn out the way I want it to.
Sure. And if
Does that
there's an
make sense?
excavator involved, you want to drive the excavator. Like
Well,
you're the one driving
if
the machinery.
there's heavy machinery in, then I'm not even going to train someone. I'm just going to drive the machinery because I want to.
You're not even going to learn first. You'll figure it out when you get out there.
Exactly. So it's interesting how it's anti my personality to relinquish this, but also it's kind of like we as humans, we want to feel significant.
Yeah.
We want to feel important. And seemingly when God asks you to take a step back, you in the natural think, well, my significance is going back with me. My importance and my value is going back with me.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, if I'm the one that's been up front and leading this for the last 22 years and I've kind of gotten my self-worth from it, helping younger people and teaching them and training them and being there when times are hard and counseling them and talking to them and helping out in crisis. Like, we can't help in our human nature to feel important when we're doing things like
Your
that.
identity is almost wrapped up in it.
You become a little bit of wrapped up in it. So when God is like, okay, it's time to stop doing that or pull back from that, you're like, well, that's who I am.
I just got this hat fitted.
Honestly.
What do you mean? I made business cards.
I made business cards. That's amazing. Speaking of nostalgia, like we haven't had business cards in forever. Nostalgia. Why do I always put the?
I don't know. It sounds fancier.
It's the French version. Anyways, but anyways, it's like, so I think we have to be careful because there's so many things that try to influence seasons that aren't really God. And it's like, what is in Robert that's trying to influence this season that's not really God leading him? It's my self-worth.
Yeah.
It's my identity. It's what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. It's all these emotions, and they're not bad.
Yeah.
It's just like we have to learn how to table that so that we can hear clearly what God is saying. We can hear genuinely and authentically, and we have to learn how to table. Okay, I'm going to table my pride. I'm going to table my identity. I'm going to table who I am, and I'm just going to kind of get over here in the presence of God and be like, okay, Lord, what do you have for me in this season? What is it that you want me to do? Let me just shelf all this and come find, and then when we start going down that road, if this other stuff can come along, then it can come along.
Yeah.
But if it can't, I just have to leave it there.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to let any of that stuff keep me from following after the steps that the Bible says he has ordered.
Yeah.
The steps that he has instructed. And those are the steps that I want to follow. And it's always about self that makes it difficult. You remember Jonah, the whale guy.
Or fish, however your interpretation is.
Yeah,
Whatever your translation says.
I guarantee he wasn't swallowed by like a largemouth bass. You know what I mean?
That'd be a very
It's a huge bass.
yeah. Jonah was very small.
Mini me Jonah. Lego version. It's like, but like God is like, I want you to go here to Nineveh and I want
Yeah.
you to preach. And out of self-preservation,
Yeah.
no, he was like, no, I'm going to where was it? Tarsus or Tarsus or something like that.
Tarshish.
And it ended up, and what's so interesting about this is completely off topic, but when you read that story and you're reading about Jonah, it's like everybody on the ship, if you remember, I don't remember exactly how they phrased it.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, but it was really close to this. They said, we perceive you're running from the presence of the Lord. So it's like when we ignore seasons in our life, it begins to have an effect on everyone else's life, and like they can see it and they're
Yeah.
like, what's wrong with you?
I mean,
know?
I'm sure I was not pleasant to be around during that season. I was
Yeah.
probably not as joyful as I should be. I wasn't as encouraging as I should be. I was probably frustrating those that are around me. And until I was able to make that decision, that peace that was on me, I was able to put out to other people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was clearly in a place to where I was probably unhappy. So why would I? I was probably making life difficult for those around me. So it's probably good that I obeyed and let it go so I could be joyful.
And
again.
you let God lead you into that next season
Yeah.
or that next chapter.
Yeah.
Because if not, I mean, we could project and we could hypothesize, but, I've imagined that if you would have fought against that, eventually it would have put strain on you and Kai.
Sure.
It would have became burdensome for your relationship, and then who knows how that turns out.
Yeah.
And so, again, this obedience and this submission thing, it's always for our benefit.
Yeah.
And, once Jonah finally got it and was like, all right, I'll go up there. I mean, a whole, all of Nineveh turned and started worshiping God because he obeyed and went, which was interesting because then he wasn't truly even satisfied about that. But that's a whole different thing, And so God had to do the thing with the tree and the worm and to show him, his mercy and his grace. But anyways,
Such a weird story.
it's really not. It's God showing us how much he loves people. And it's so cool in that story how God will communicate things and use natural things to communicate. But the point is that we just have to lay stuff. Like Jonah had to finally get over it and said, okay, I'm going to die to self
Yeah. Yeah.
so I can follow God's plan.
Yeah.
I'm going to die to self so I can go into this next season that he has for me. And I think that there's, and I almost, as we're talking about this, I'm not going to say that it is indefinitely, but it's almost like sometimes I wonder if he brings those season changes on purpose. Like these things have been built up on the inside of us and they're almost becoming more crucial to us than he is. And so he's he has implemented things to continually allow us to die to self so that way we continually rely, not that he needs that from us.
Sure.
God is perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's making sure, okay, if I get built up too much on Robert, that's going to be toxic and bad for Robert.
Yeah.
So God's like, I've got a way to keep you from becoming more than you actually are. And that sounds really negative. I have a way to keep you from hurting your own self.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I'm going to do is I've got these steps that I've ordered for you, and you follow those. It'll always keep your family in the right place, keep you in the right place, keep me in the right place so that things will be well with you, And so it's interesting how that works because, you say that to the wrong person and they're just like, your egotistical maniac of a God is doing all these things to keep you in check. And that's not what it is at
Right.
all. He has these season changes and these things implemented because he knows at the end of the day, my pride will kill me.
Yeah. It's so funny because I think about the Tower of Babel, and we talked about this on a podcast not too long ago, but I don't know if I had said this, but if they were going to build a tower to the heavens, the Lord said that nothing would be impossible to them. And naturally speaking, that means they were going to build a tower, and eventually they're going to get so high in the atmosphere that they're not going to be able to breathe. Like, they're not going to be able to survive as high as they go. So it almost makes me, wonder or even think, because I've thought about that story, and I've thought, well, God just didn't want them to get up to heaven or whatever. But when you think about it with a little bit of naturalism, perhaps that was God's mercy because they were on a mission to death. Like, you're going to build this tower so high that you're not going to be able to survive in the upper atmosphere. Then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But you're going to get so set on that to death, you're going to do it, and it'll eventually be your death.
Yeah.
So, kind of what you're saying,
Yeah.
he scattered them
Yeah.
for their own good
Yes.
at that point, because it's like nothing would have been impossible to them, and that was going to lead to their death if you think about it naturally.
Yeah.
So.
That's wild.
Everything he always does is for our benefit.
Yeah.
Even when it looks like confusion, even when it looks like how could this be for my benefit? If we will trust in God and his infinite wisdom and realize it is always for my benefit. Why? Because he cares that much about me.
Mm-hmm.
He cares that much about this creation that we call mankind, that we call human beings. He cares that much about it that he's not going to let us destroy ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and so he'll implement things, and he has implemented things in our lives because he already knows our tomorrow better than we know our yesterday. And so he knows, okay, in 5 years, you're going to need this because you're going to be starting to think a whole lot of yourself. And so I've got something in place that before the foundations of the world, I knew you were going to be here. And if you'll just trust me, it's going to allow that to keep you from doing great things. It's going to allow that to, because this could be a hurdle, this could be a blockade, this could stop you from doing all that you're supposed to do. But I knew that ahead of time, so I've put all this stuff in your life, and if you'll just trust me, you'll be able to, you know, achieve that stuff. But it's about trusting in him and doing it God's way, you know, which isn't always easy, but it's always right.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy Outer Banks a lot.
I love the OBX.
It's so
So
good.
great.
But I was thinking like season
Season 4.
season one was so good.
to drop.
And I remember like just really, really enjoying it. But then, you know, season 2 came out. But I was thinking like, what if I just loved season 1 so much that I just stayed watching season 1? I never, you know what I mean? Like season
Never
1
got
was
to
so
experience,
good
yeah.
and it was like so amazing. But, you know, season 2 became available, 3 came available, 4's coming. But it's like if I stuck and stayed with season 1, I would never see the rest of the story. I would
Yes,
never
that's what I
know
was just about to say.
what happens.
Yeah.
And I think this is such like a silly
It's
you know,
not. It's good.
analogy.
It's a good analogy, actually.
But it's like if I were to stick and stay in my old season, or if you were to stick and stay in a certain season of your life, you will never really benefit from what God has in your future. You'll never really experience the journey that is this walk with God. And I think that that's a part of it. There are seasons in our life, and there are wonderful seasons of our life that God has before us, but they're seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're meant to be seasonal. And so we must appreciate whatever walk of life that we're
Amen.
in and enjoy where we're at, but understand like we can't be stuck to the season. We got to be stuck to God.
Yeah.
And like you said and hinted to, is like if you don't move on from season 1 to get to season, you'll never finish the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll never know what could have happened, you know? And so I want to finish my story on here on earth before I go over to be with him for all of eternity. I don't want to leave any page unturned. I don't want to
Yeah.
I don't want to just stay on season 3. I want to, you know, I want to see if they find that ship, you know?
Yeah.
I don't even know if they're still on the ship or not. I forget how season 3 ended, but you know what I mean? I want to know how the
Yeah.
story ends, and I can't get stuck in a season. You know, another interesting way of looking at it is like I love fall and I love winter, but I wonder if that was
We
all
know.
we know. Whoa. But if that's all I ever lived, I'm sure I would get tired of it.
Yeah.
You know, how much does summer,
I doubt that, but yes, I understand what for you.
even though I despise it, how much does summer make me look forward more to
Yes, true.
what
That's
is
true.
coming?
That's true. That's
you know,
true.
and there's this beautiful way that seasons, even if it's not the greatest
Yeah.
season,
Yeah.
because that happens, to go back to OBX, like felt like it kind of fell off a little bit
you know.
there, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it wasn't
But
the
season
greatest.
4 is coming back. You know, it's gonna be great. But you know, it's like
I'm still with it though.
so if you're in that season, you're like, man, it just hasn't been a great season. You know, be optimistic and know that the good season's coming.
Yes,
The
yeah.
great season's
Yeah.
coming, you know? And it's like summer does that for me.
Yeah.
I know the great season's coming. Fall is right around the corner. Winter's right around the corner. So even if you feel like, man, it's just been a bad season and it's
Yeah.
been a tough season for me and my family, be optimistic and know that
Yeah.
God is bringing you around a corner and you're about to step over into a great season.
Yeah.
And, but it's about stepping over into that great season.
So good.
And it's about letting go of anything that would keep you from that season. And what I have found, even in the bad seasons, God is still shaping me, molding
Yeah.
me, teaching me,
Yeah.
preparing me,
Yeah.
directing me. And sometimes those hard seasons are necessary because I need to develop the character and certain things that I have to have for the great season.
Yeah.
You know, and so and it leads me into the great season. And so just know whatever season it is right now, maybe you're in a great season. Well, then, man, just believe God that the next season's going to be even better, like a greater season, you know? And so, but it is important. You know, I told Samuel, I just used his name. I told Samuel.
Not Samuel, his son.
Yeah, different Samuel.
You don't know.
Jackson.
It might have been Christian, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
There's the other one.
You gotta,
Anyways,
someone who will remain nameless.
I told him, I said, the only thing that remains the same is that everything changes.
Yeah.
And he was like, that makes zero sense.
Isn't that like a saying, like the only constant is change?
Is change.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, and I was like, well, it does make sense. It's the only thing that continuously changes.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, it was really funny. I'll tell you guys another funny, not trying to get off topic, but yesterday, Pastor Mark was like, I'm not feeling very churchy this morning. Did y'all hear him say that?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
One of my sons said, you're not the only one. Seasons. And
good.
so there are seasons.
good.
I can say this. There was a season in my life where church was difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to wake up and come, and I was just like kind of over it, you know? And I had to go to the Lord, and I had to say, listen, what's going on the inside of me? I want to get past this season of being frustrated and past this season of just like kind of going through the motions of church. And so let him navigate me through that season. And now I'm just so excited to go to church. I look forward to it. So, you know what I mean? So seasons are good. Yeah.
So good.
Amen.
I was going to say something like to the effect of the seasons, because you can't, even if you are in a hard season too, you can't just skip ahead to the next one, even if the Lord's cast vision, or whatever the next one looks like. Because I was thinking on a natural thing, and you kind of said it, like if we were to go, like obviously seasons are different around the world, but they're set up for a reason around the world. If we were to go from summer straight into winter here and skip fall, I'm sure that would have a lot of like issues on the environment, like no one's preparing.
Yeah.
And you have those times to prepare for those seasons too. So
we got 2 weeks in ours.
yeah.
Those
But-
2 weeks though.
But like
Something's
that
happening.
preparation time is really necessary.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, I do
Absolutely.
also believe that if we're following after what the Lord is telling us to do, and we're actually seeking Him in His mercy, I feel like most of the time, maybe not every single time, but there is likely going to be that time of preparation. And we could miss that preparation time for the next season, which could make the next season hard if we're not following God, or if we're not seeking God, or if we are too focused on what's in front of us. Like with the band thing, like if you, for that year, you were focused on like, I'm going to hold on to this. But maybe that year was supposed to be preparation time. Like maybe God was going to give you that year anyway. I mean, you don't know, but it's like maybe that year was a transition out, but it was more of a hard transition because you were holding on instead of preparing for what was next.
Yeah.
So
It's true, because if we have like, you look at a natural farmer, and they got the long summer days where it's hot and it's a lot of tireless work. But if they don't use that season to prepare, then when winter gets here, they don't have what they need to survive.
Yeah.
And what they have to make it. And so it's so true. So find the way to make the most of every moment.
Amen.
And make the most of every season, whether it's good or bad. And know that even if it does look bad, God is still with you, and He will turn all things for your good. And even if it's good, just expect it to get better, because that's the God that you serve.
Amen.
So good.
We love you guys so much. We hope you have an amazing, wonderful week, and we'll see you next time on The Good Talk. Bye.
Bye. Did you almost say next season?
No, I was going to say, I should have said that.
See you next season.
That would have been really good.